Welcome to your deep dive for April 21st, 2025. We've sifted through today's key news stories for you. Huge thanks to Alarms.Global for making this possible. All right, let's dive straight in. First up, have you heard about what's happening with Iran's nuclear program?
Yes, I have indeed.
Right, so Israeli leaders, they're talking quite openly now about potential airstrikes on Iran's nuclear sites. That's if diplomacy doesn't, produce results.
Yeah,
And this is even with the U.S. urging caution.
right. Preferring the diplomatic route.
Exactly. But what's really interesting is the debate within Israel. Opposition folks are arguing, well, that military action is needed now to stop Iran getting uranium enriched up to near weapons-grade levels. We're talking 60%, apparently still climbing.
Yeah, and that 60% figure is particularly concerning. The technical step from 60% to weapons grade, it's significantly smaller. Now, U.S. intelligence reportedly thinks Israel might be eyeing strikes later this year. But many experts are warning, that this kind of attack probably wouldn't completely destroy Iran's capabilities. It would likely just delay them. And crucially, it could really escalate things across the whole region.
A major escalation risk.
Absolutely. And President Biden's team seems hesitant to give Israel a green light for military action without some kind of new diplomatic deal first. So, yeah, lots of tension there.
Definitely. Okay, moving over to Eastern Europe. Have you heard about the latest in Ukraine, particularly after that proposed ceasefire?
Yes, I have.
So President Putin proposed this unilateral 30-hour Easter ceasefire, but it seems conflict resumed pretty much immediately afterwards.
That appears to be the case. Reports say Russian forces launched missile and drone attacks across several Ukrainian regions almost as soon as it ended.
And Ukraine claimed they intercepted quite a few of those drones, didn't they?
They did. They claimed they downed or jammed 42 out of 96 drones in just one wave, apparently using electronic warfare and air defenses.
That sounds quite effective.
It suggests their capabilities in that area are, well, certainly being put to the test and perhaps improving. Also, President Zelensky pointed out something like over 2,900 alleged Russian violations during the ceasefire itself.
Wow, during the ceasefire window.
Yes, which, really underscores the deep mistrust Kiev has towards any proposals coming from Moscow, makes future talks incredibly difficult. Meanwhile, Putin stated Russia was still positive about genuine peace talks, but also that they'd resume operations after the pause.
Right. Okay, still on Ukraine. Any news on new aid packages? Have you heard about Germany, for instance?
Yes, I have.
Germany announced another significant military aid package, didn't they? Confirmed back in February.
That's right. It's quite substantial. Includes things like 4 more Zizana 2 self-propelled howitzers. These are 155 millimeters, and they come with a huge amount of ammunition, 50,000 rounds.
50,000 rounds, wow. What else?
Also, Iris-T air defense missiles, which are crucial for Ukraine, and 8 Wisent-1 mine-clearing tanks. Heavy equipment.
Definitely sounds like it. Any drones included?
Yes, quite a few, actually. Over 300 HF-1 strike drones, plus dozens of reconnaissance UAVs like Vector and Songbird. Oh, and also over 60 million rounds of small arms ammunition. It really signals Germany's ongoing commitment.
A very comprehensive package, then.
Okay.
Okay, let's shift focus. Southeast Asia. Have you heard about any interesting military deployments happening in the Philippines?
Yes.
So the Balakadan 2025 joint exercise kicked off today, right? With thousands of U.S. and Filipino troops.
Correct. Over 14,000 personnel involved.
And alongside that, the U.S. has deployed something called NMESIS for the first time there.
That's right. The Navy Marine Expeditionary Ship Interdiction System, or NMESIS. It's been deployed to remote locations in the Batangas Islands and the Luzon Strait.
And what exactly is NMESIS?
Well, it's essentially a mobile, land-based anti-ship missile system, a ship killer, as it's described. It uses Norwegian-made NSM missiles. And deploying it there in those specific locations,
He's quite pointed.
it's definitely a move aimed at strengthening deterrence, particularly against potential naval threats in the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait. A clear show of power projection in a pretty tense area.
Got it. Okay, staying with military cooperation, but moving to the Middle East. Have you heard about any joint exercises there?
Yes, I have.
Egypt and China have started their first ever joint air drill. Eagles of Civilization 2025, I think it's called.
That's the one. China's PLA Air Force has sent aircraft transport planes like the Y-20 and J-10 fighters to Egypt for exercises running from mid-April into early May.
First time they've done this together.
First joint air drill, yes. The stated goal is deepening military cooperation and building new defense ties in the Middle East.
Interesting. What are analysts saying?
Well, open source tracking confirmed at least 5 of those big Y-20 heavy lift aircraft arriving in Cairo. Analysts see this and the exercise itself as another sign of China's growing influence and strategic interest in North Africa and the wider Middle East. It's about building those partnerships, volatile regions.
Absolutely. Okay, sadly, staying in Africa, there's been news of significant violence in Nigeria. Have you heard about the attack in Plateau State?
Yes, unfortunately, a very tragic incident.
It happened in the Zeke farming community near Jos in north-central Nigeria.
That's correct. A night raid, reportedly by suspected Fulani herders. Initial reports indicate at least 40 people were killed, possibly over 50. Homes were also burned down. Just devastating.
Awful. And this was a targeted attack, not protest-related.
Yes, it seems to have been a targeted attack on that specific community. It underscores the terrible ongoing conflicts between farmers and herders in Nigeria. These are often driven by really complex issues around land, resources, and ethnic tensions.
Has there been any official response?
President Tinubu has condemned the violence, ordered an investigation, and stressed the need to tackle these farmer-herder conflicts. But it's a stark reminder of the human cost.
Indeed. Okay, let's switch gears completely now to global trade. Have you heard about any new tariffs on steel imports into India?
Yes, that news came out today.
India's imposed a temporary safeguard duty, is that right?
Yes, 12% duty effective today, April 21st. It's on select steel imports, mainly targeting those coming from China, South Korea, and Japan.
And this is temporary.
For 200 days initially. The stated aim is to counter a surge in cheap foreign steel shipments, apparently at a 9-year high, which were seen as threatening local Indian steel mills and jobs.
So protecting domestic industry.
Essentially, yes. It follows a recommendation back in March and is meant to restore, quote, fair competition for domestic producers like JSW, Tata Steel, and SAIL. We'll have to see what impact it has globally.
Right. Okay, one final item related to international shipping. Have you heard about DHL Express making some changes to their U.S.-bound shipments?
Yes, I did see that.
Effective today as well, they've temporarily suspended some shipments to the U.S.
That's right. Specifically, business to consumer, or B2C, packages that are valued above US $800 and going to private individuals in the U.S.
Okay, above $800. Why the suspension?
It seems to be a direct consequence of a change by U.S. Customs back on April 5th. They lowered the informal entry value threshold from $2,500 down to $800.
A big drop.
Exactly. And according to DHL, this sudden change basically overwhelmed their customs clearance processes, causing significant backlogs and delays.
So they needed to pause to catch up.
Pretty much. They say the suspension is temporary, lasting until they can scale up their processing capacity to handle the new lower threshold. It's worth noting, business-to-business shipments over $800 are still allowed, but DHL warns they might face delays too.
Okay, good to know for anyone expecting packages.
Definitely something to be aware of if you've ordered something valuable from overseas recently via DHL.
So there you have it, a quick run through some key global events for today, April 21st, 2025. We really hope this deep dive has given you a clear and useful overview. If you found it valuable, please do hit that like button. And thanks again to Alarms.Global for making this possible. We'll be back soon with another deep dive. In the meantime, maybe think about how some of these events, even though they seem separate, might connect or have ripple effects. It's all interconnected, isn't it?